Microphone number 2.
Chair, I would like to reintroduce Craig Caulfield.
Thank you.
Thank you. My heart skipped a beat when I heard the response from the auditor to Senator Schott's question that $20 million was not meaningful. So that means there's no external auditing done, and given that there's 2 people in jail, there's no internal auditing that was sufficient then. I'm flabbergasted. But that leads me to think that if 20 million is not meaningful, what is meaningful in the bank's business is home lending. That is the biggest part of the bank. And we know that in some, a minority, not the majority, but in some home lending there is fraud.
Yes.
We've heard of liar loans. Liar loans could be the borrower that is fraudulent in their application. Sometimes it's the broker. Sometimes it's the bankers. UBS has reported that liar loans could be up to $200 billion. On the back of the auditor's comments, I would like to know from the auditor how many loan application files does the order to interrogate, and of those loan application files, how many are found to be fraudulent?
So I do need to be clear, it is not the role of the external auditor to review loan application files. Let me just describe the risk management framework in a large organisation. There are what are called 3 lines of accountability. The first line of accountability is the business itself. The people who run the home loans business are responsible for the integrity of the home loan process. It's their job to ensure that there are controls in place to make sure that fraud is either prevented or, if it sneaks through, is detected. There's then what's called the second line of accountability, and these are the functions within the bank, be it the risk function or an internal audit function, that check on those processes to see whether or not they're working. The role of the external auditor is to provide an assurance on the end result, which is the financial statements of the bank. So as part of that, they will review the overall framework for controls, but it is not the job of the external auditor to do a file-by-file review of the home loan book. It is the responsibility of the people running the home loan business to have in place a control environment, and it is the responsibility of our risk function and our internal audit function to periodically check that those processes work. So I just want to be clear, I just don't want Sarah being put in a position of asking questions that are simply not appropriate for her. But I'm happy, and I know that Ross or Gary would be happy to take the question, which is, how do our review processes work? And as you appreciate, we did discover in the Royal Commission that there were issues around frauds in the home loan process from introducers, and we shut that program down.
Well, yeah, thank you for explaining the 3 lines of defence, and I now understand that the auditor doesn't look at any of the loans and that that's done internally.
Yes.
Yesterday at the ANZ AGM, they mentioned that using artificial intelligence, they found in the current year or a year recently, 3,500 loan applications that contain fraud. So they've used this new technology to find that. Mm-hmm. Is NAB using this technology to find fraud in loan applications?
Ross?
Thank you very much for the question. We do, but we also have a very thorough process at the front end, be it through our own personal bankers that do the application. There's a lot of technology that is used to validate the information that the customer puts in or that the broker has put in via the customer, because that is where the fraud will come. The second point of so it'll surround income validation that we have to do the checking on. The second validation is, does the property exist and is the valuation of the property the right valuation or within a band? That's something else that we do to check, again, through fraud, because some of the fraud comes through from putting valuations in that are incorrect. That's the second check we do. We also have a team that do the second assurance, as the Chairman has said, to make sure that we're going through and checking files. And when you're looking at a new lender, you do considerable file checking, i.e. 100%, until they are experienced. And then you're constantly going through on a basis of, I think, about 5% of checking files to make sure fraud, but also that we're following our responsible banking requirements. And we're using more and more data searching that actually is enabling us to, A, be quicker, and two, to find exactly what you're talking about. But that is not the external auditor's role. It's role done by our businesses, and it's their accountability. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. McEwen. The verification, I understand the valuations and confirming the property. In my CBA loan, I later found out, only obtaining it through freedom of information, there was a property added in my loan that I never owned and never knew about. So these things happen and verification is required, so that's good to hear. But some more granular insurances for this verification, I see this across the board that verification failures occur, but thank you for responding to that, and I would like to hear more on that later privately.
Indeed.